sound like I'm talking out of my ass.
Then please try to enunciate.
No, it's a figure. Never mind.
Good evening and welcome to the Orville Review Show. Today we're talking about a girl, the third episode of the Orville's first season. And joining me tonight are the panelists extraordinaire, in my opinion. These are the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the top guns, as I would like to say. We have to my immediate, well, in this case, it's my left, I guess, Dave Maynor.
Oh, hello. I'm here to bring achieve glory for guiding Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. That's my thing tonight.
I don't think your nose is red enough, Dave.
Oh, no. Okay. Well, perhaps I should have been euthanized at birth.
Perhaps. Or at least give it a sex change.
Yes. Maybe. Who says that I didn't?
Actually, that might explain some things, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. And of course, who could forget the almighty, all-powerful, and mostly all-cynical Kevin Millard.
Wow, you really nailed me there. Holy.
Thank you.
That's good.
I tried. Anyway, guys, so in this thought-provoking installment, Second Officer Bortus and his mate Kylan, or Clyden. There you go. I'm always terrible with names. Anybody who knows me knows that. Anyway, Clyden finds himself embroiled in a heated debate. Their newborn child, a rare girl among the single-gendered Mocklins, face a controversial decision. Should she undergo sex reassignment surgery? Seems like something that, even though this was a couple years ago, this is still a fresh topic. And this is still a topic that I think even to today and, probably in 20 years from now, people will still be debating. So I guess the question here first, guys, is what are our first thoughts about this episode? Go ahead, Dave.
I think it's great, this episode. I think that this episode is what some of the best Star Trek episodes do, science fiction in general, or any kind of story that has sort of a morality tied up with metaphor. And I think that there are some important questions asked all around on this issue, in the courtroom and what are the limits on sort of, I guess, culture, and how much respect you give to culture and where that line ends, I guess, when you're talking about something like the Union or the Federation or anything like that, where you have sort of a cooperation of like these overlapping of societies and, different values. So I think this episode is sort of a major home run, and it ends on kind of a sad note, too.
Yeah, you don't expect the ending that you get.
Right.
While you're watching this, you're like, oh wow, we're really ending it here. But the one thing that season one kind of taught us is that the stories do, like, the episodes do overlap. They don't always overlap, but they overlap enough that there's more to come, kind of thing, on this subject. So it's interesting. Anyway, Kevin, what do you think?
It's great. It's just a great episode. Everything Dave said was correct. It's just great.
I agree.
And like Murphy said in the chat, for a third episode, it's a pretty heavy topic.
Yeah, this is like, and, this isn't a light one.
They nail it. They do a good job.
Yeah, like, I guess my only sort of thought, like, if you want to call it a negative or a takeaway, was sort of like that maybe if we got to know Bortus and Clyden a little bit longer before they hit us with this episode, I think maybe that would have been something I would have liked, because I think that Clyden gets sort of a not a great introduction here, because we don't really know. We meet him very briefly in the previous episode.
Yeah.
And he's kind of at odds with Bortus and the rest.
He's almost
of
the villain of the episode, really.
Yeah, in some ways, right? And I think that I think it would be a little bit more interesting, I think, if we were sort of like, if we liked Clyden coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. So versus how we kind of meet him here. He's played by what's his name, the Tyrese from Walking Dead, right?
Is there really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
The brother of the on-screen brother in Walking Dead of Michael Burnham's character.
Yes.
Or I guess Sonequa Martin Green is who I mean. I can't even remember what her Walking Dead character was anymore. She died so long ago, but was it like Sasha or something like that?
Sasha. Yeah, Sasha.
Yeah,
that's right.
At
least that rings a bell anyway.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell it's him under all the makeup, which
I had no idea that was him. It doesn't even sound like him. Like
No.
everything about it is different. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah, obviously he doesn't have a beard under the makeup or whatever. But yeah, I think that this is a really good episode. I think it's yeah, like this idea of like the prime directive, or like how much do you have the right to sort of impose your values onto another society here, I think is the big thing I came away from this. And I think that the conversation with Ed and Kelly in particular in the mess hall is really on point, where she's like, well, what if their culture said, we're going to kill this baby at birth just because we feel like that? Or is that how we're going to sort of show tolerance or show like cultural understanding? Like, do we have red lines on these things? Yeah. I think that these were important questions they should have asked before they had admitted what are they called? Bortus's people, the
Mocklins.
Yeah, maybe they should have asked these questions before the Mocklins were admitted into the union.
Into the union?
I don't know.
That might have been a good idea. Yeah. You have something that is that, like, that's a major one. Like, it's not like, like that's something that should have come up already. Like,
I feel like that should be on like the survey when you're joining.
Yeah, you got like a questionnaire, and it's like, do you try to kill your females? Right. Like that might that's a good question, or
you're not allowed them to exist. We also see in the episode that the Mocklins are, they're big into weapons manufacturing, and they're kind of, environmentally not too nice. And
I loved when they visited the planet, because you got to see like the Mocklin planet, and it is just a dump. Like it's
and I love that.
And they're shooting, and
yeah, they've industrialized the entire surface of their planet. Like, I love that line.
Yeah, exactly. Sam says, "Hey guys."
Hey Sam.
And of course, who could forget Norman as well? He says,
"Hey Norman."
Hello, Norman.
Yeah. Oh, say that again, Kevin. That was a little creepy.
No, I think I'm good. That creeped me out.
That was a little creepy. Eh? Hello, Norman. Anyway. All right. Well, shall we get started there, gentlemen?
Sure. Let's jump in. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So we start ourselves off. Whoops. Oh, well, I just kind of jumped over there. Sorry, guys. I'm still new at this. All right. It's my first day. Anyway. So this is the establishing shot of the whole show, is literally everybody crowded around looking at this baby. And it's cute baby, for an alien baby, I guess, it's
for a Mocklin baby.
Yeah. The one thing that just strikes me is how good the makeup is. Like, again, like this show does not disappoint when it comes to aliens. Like,
do you think that's makeup, or do you think that they've done that digitally?
I don't know. Maybe they did do it digitally. It might have been easier to do it digitally.
It's got to be tough to to get a kid that long in makeup, right? And not touching it, and
right. Yeah, it's got to be digital. Then you're probably right, but it still looks great. So bravo VFX guys. Basically, we see everybody kind of oohing and ahhing over the baby, and you see Bortus in the background, and as well as Kaylin and Clyden. God, why do I keep saying Kaylin? Clyden, just feel free to correct me. Who they look like they're preoccupied, which we don't know yet why, but obviously we will know. But our teaser from last episode was them hovering over the baby, going, "It's a girl.
It's a girl, and that's impossible.
That's impossible." Yeah. So it's like, oh, that's interesting. So. But anyway, so we end up going to the sick bay where Claire and what's his name? Yaphet. I still think that's such a weird name. Anyway,
Norm Macdonald.
Yeah, Norm Macdonald voices him, the late Norm Macdonald, unfortunately. But his vocals are great on this. I do like the character as well. I think Yaphet's character is kind of interesting, especially for this type of show where usually you have humanoid aliens and they're part of the crew, but Yaphet's part of the crew, and he's essentially a CG character, but he's
Not
also
humanoid.
a pervert.
He's a bit of a
pervert.
He's a Casanova, maybe.
He is a Casanova. He's basically this entire thing is him. What's that?
He's a stalker.
He is really just a stalker. That's true. But you know what? The nice thing about Yaphet's character, which we don't really, this is other than Mercer stepping into him when he was running the one time. We haven't seen Yaphet. Like, this is kind of the first Yaphet kind of scene in the series. And Yaphet is essentially faking an illness to be in sick bay so he can keep asking Claire out, which we get the impression he's done quite a lot. And she's like, we're not compatible, man, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm friend zoning you. But I think she has a point. This might be an odd connection here. But then he decides I don't know what the nice family friendly way of saying this is, but he alludes
he sexually harasses her.
He sexually harasses her and alludes to this might be fun for her with this particular instrument. And
a ball of goo, and he kind of extends a tentacle of sorts at her. I think kind of in the shape of a dick. So, but he doesn't actually have a dick or lungs or anything else.
Nope, he's just a gelatinous blob. What else do you want?
He wants a dick.
Is he cutting out for you, Kevin?
Yeah. Okay. Your microphone's doing it again, Dave.
It's doing it again, Dave.
No.
Can't hear you. Dave will do another reboot, I guess. Or maybe unplug your mixer and plug it back in or something. I don't know. Anyway, we'll see Dave in a bit, hopefully. So it's just you and me now, Kevin.
Yeah.
So anyway, Yaphet's on his way out and Bortus is on his way in. Bortus is like, I kind of need you to do something here. And she's like, what? The baby's fine. I already had a look at her and, she's great. And he's like, no, she's not great. She's not male. That is basically the summary of this.
And I need you to correct that.
Yeah, you need to correct that. And it's kind of a proposition that you almost get the impression that Claire is, well, I think it really is the impression that Claire is actually offended by this question. Like she's not happy about this at all. And we don't see too many interactions between Bortus and her. So it's interesting that, third episode in, we're already getting this conflict with them, which is kind of odd. But this is Claire, showing this is her moral compass. And it's a good way to, I guess, tell us more about this character, which we're going to be learning a lot more later on. But Claire basically says, no way, I'm not doing that. That's completely against my ethics. That's against my Socratic oath.
Yeah, he argues with her for a bit, and then she's just like, I'm a union doctor on a union ship, and I will not do this to an infant.
Yeah, which totally makes sense. If we think of it in the Star Trek, line of things, I'm pretty sure Crusher would do the exact same thing.
Yeah, there's no way Crusher would do it.
Yeah, Crusher wouldn't pull this shit either. So it's, it makes perfect sense. And, it's, he's angry, but he's Bortus, so he doesn't really show it. But, he's angry with her decision, essentially. She's like, there's no way I'm going to do this. I don't care. Like, I'm not doing this. You're not going to get me to do this. She's very strong. And then we go into a cowboy scene. Now, normally, Kevin, when we see cowboys, we think it's bad.
Yes.
Right? So yes. I bet when you watched this the first time, you went, "Oh shit!"
Right? Yep, this is going to be bad.
Yeah, this is going to be bad. Turns out, not really.
Not bad.
Yeah, kind of funny.
Not great. It doesn't land. It doesn't fully land for me, but it's still all right.
You know what? It doesn't hurt the episode.
No, when they're talking and he's like, we'll do a dance contest. I'm like, eh. But then girls just want to have fun starts and he starts dancing. And I'm like, okay, I'm in now.
And the only reason why this is even happening is because what's his name reprogrammed the simulation. So it's not, well, I guess this is what would they call this program? Is this this isn't the Alamo, is it? No, this is
no.
This is I don't remember anyway.
I don't remember.
But basically they're in a simulation right now, and at the beginning you're like, okay, this is kind of interesting, and then it turns into the guy's like, I have a gun trained on your head, what are you gonna do, kind of thing. And Mercer's just like, well, we got to settle this somehow, and And he's like, why is he talking like this? And all of a sudden Bortus shows up, and Bortus is like, this is an emergency. I need it. And Mercer's like, come on, man. I'm like,
we're playing in
the middle of this game, right? So he's kind of thing. And then of course he starts hitting the moves. And
I love how Gordon is like, yeah.
Gordon's totally into it, right? Like Gordon's just like, yeah, you go, buddy, you go. He's like, he's worming around, he's doing the robot, he's doing all these like terrible dance moves. There's Dave. Hopefully we have a microphone, Dave, this time. Let's see.
No,
we do not. All right. I'm sorry. And he's gone again. All right. So anyway, the show must go on, Kevin. All right.
Fucking Windows 98.
Fucking Windows 98. No, I don't think he's running 98. That would be bad. But basically, you just see him, and he's doing all these little dances and everything. And Mercer goes with Bortus because Bortus says it's an emergency, basically. And essentially, the exact same conversation that happens with the doctor happens with Mercer as well. Why order her to do this? Right?
That's my favorite. She won't do it. I need you to order her.
Yeah, I need you to order her. And Mercer's just like, nah, it doesn't work that way, man.
I actually think this scene, for the first time that Mercer has really shown like strength as a leader here, when he is like, that's it. Basically, get out.
Yeah, he's like, I'm done.
Get out.
I'm done. Take off. I'm not interested in this conversation anymore. But basically, this is one of those things where I think this is where the cleft palate thing comes in, right? They talk about the cleft palate.
Yeah, he talks about
Bortus is like, well, kids sometimes are born with a cleft palate, and you guys fix that. And Mercer's like, yeah, it takes about 12 seconds, and it's fixed at birth, and that's the end of it. And he goes, well, I want you to fix the sex of my kid. And he's like, it's not the same thing. Like it's totally different, right? And then I think does he bring up the circumcision in this as well?
No, that's later.
No, that's later on. Okay.
Yeah.
But basically Mercer's just kind of like beside himself. He's like, I can't believe I'm even being asked this. Like, this is not cool. Right. And you can actually see, like, you start seeing Mercer get actually kind of aggravated with them, which is something you don't see Mercer get aggravated with his crew very often. Like, it's generally himself or the people that he's dealing with. But basically he's just like, yeah, I'm not cool with this. And
I'd be breaking like 1,000 different laws, he says. And I'm out it. Like, get out.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, yeah, no, time to get out. And then we get kind of the mission that they're on right now, which is, I guess, this huge comet is going to hit this planet. And you know how usually you have like the Star Trek trope of, they have 3 hours to fix it or something like that. And they're like, yeah, it's going to hit in about a month. And he's like, oh, well, we got, and then I think Kelly's like, oh, well, at least we got some time then.
I love too, like they cut it and then they call it a tractor beam, and then he says, shove it out of the way, and he goes, activating shoving beam.
Yeah, activating shoving beam. Some of the things are just so funny in this show.
Yeah.
It's just so silly, but it's so funny. But basically we see them slice this thing and then Isaac basically says, oh yeah, no, we got to push it. If once you push it, we're good. And then, they push it with the pushing beam or the shoving beam, I guess it is.
Shoving beam.
Yeah. So they shove it with the shoving beam. And, Mercer's very happy with himself now. He's like, all right, job well done. Great.
Couldn't save a marriage, but we saved a planet.
Yeah, I couldn't save our marriage, but we could save a planet. And, which they kind of do a little bit of that griping, a little, because I think somebody says a comment like, well, Kelly, what if your parents, made you a boy? And then Mercer's like, well, that would have saved me a year of marriage or something like that.
Yeah. Would have saved me a whole marriage. She's just like,
it would have saved me a whole marriage. She's just like, great, thanks. But you can see how they're kind of making light of it at this point. Like, she's not as annoyed as she was in the first episode whenever he brought something up.
Right.
But basically there's an incoming message. It's from the Moclan, one of the Moclan ships, I guess it is, or like one of the higher dignitaries. But basically he says, yeah, we're going to be rendezvousing with you. And Mercer's like, I don't have an order about that. What are you talking about? And he's like, basically along the lines of, somebody on your crew has told us to meet you. So obviously he knows who that is at this point. And of course, it's obviously these two fools.
Yeah.
But and basically what's going to happen is he says, well, you know what, Ed, no one's helping me on this ship, so I asked for the Mocklins to show up so we could do it there. Right. So at this point, we go back to the little. Oops, sorry about that. I always forget to mute that thing. But we get back into their kind of ready room, and they're having this kind of heated discussion, really. And he's just like, how dare you go around me and say this stuff and everything, which I like the fact that Mercer's growing some balls in the third episode. He doesn't really have any in the first two. He just kind of lets things kind of slide off him as much as he can.
Even at the end of this conversation, Bortus is like, can I return to my station? He's like, no, you're relieved of duty. Go. Like, get out.
Oh, let's see if we can get him.
Passed.
Okay, we can hear you right now. I think you have to be loud though. Like, just
loud is what you'll get, Jody.
That is powerful. All right. Well, let's see how long it lasts this time.
All right.
All right. We got Zesty Man here. All right. So anyway,
your probes have touched me, Mr. Spock.
Just testing.
The soundboard is working. All right. We're in the ready room right now. This is after the Mocklin ship has been called. You haven't missed too much, Dave, so you're okay. But basically, Mercer's like, like, this isn't cool, man. Like, what are you doing here? Dave can be heard. Yes. We're all happy when Dave can be heard. And Kelly is just as equally as pissed off about this, but she's not expressing it like Ed is. She's just kind of sitting on the sidelines for the most part here. And he's like, you can't just redirect, like, you can't arrange this. This has to go through either me or Kelly. Like, what are you doing? And, he's like, well, nobody was helping me, so I helped myself, kind of thing is what he's really going off here. And the guy's name who I can't pronounce. Kalen? Clyden. God damn it. Clyden. There you go. That's all you need to know. All right. Clyden kind of peeks up and he's like, yeah, well, we need to do this. This is the right thing. And Mercer's like, there's no way this is the right thing. And then basically they leave, and then these two have this kind of conversation. And I think this is where he kind of he talks about what happens if your parents.
This is where, like, not these two, but with Bortus and them, this is where he says, like, this child was born here on my ship to one of my officers, and she is under my protection.
Yeah. And
they're just like, we don't see it that way.
Yeah, which is kind of odd, but
yeah.
You'd think they would have to take, like, some sort of, as we said earlier, they would have to take some sort of survey to understand this. It's like,
well, I understood to an extent where they, they're the parents and they're like, this is still our kid, so we feel like we have the decision-making power, and they do, but but Ed Mercer's also correct, So I think
this is a union ship. It falls under union law right now.
Right. So. And Bortus should know that. Clyden, I'm more forgiving of because he's not, like, in the service or anything like that.
But it's interesting that, like, not far into this episode, though, they kind of make Clyden out to be the bad guy. Because obviously, the two guys get together with Bortus and they watch the thing, which is coming up, I think. But this conversation here, I think, is probably one of the most powerful conversations in the whole episode, which is Kelly and Ed.
But just before that, this bartender that's serving Kelly on this particular shot, he kind of looks like a Kelpian.
He does, yeah.
Does, you're right.
Just
foreshadowing, maybe?
Maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
But this conversation between these two, I think, is probably one of the best scenes in this episode. Just the talking back and forth and how serious the conversation is, yet they're still kind of making light of some of it. But Kelly is severely annoyed. Like, she's really annoyed in this scenario. She's now, instead of being annoyed at Mercer for all of his comments about their marriage and her adultery, she's now mad at something else for once, which is good. I guess good. But anyway,
well, I think this is a good conversation. I think, Kelly's coming at it from a particular point of view. She's obviously she's going to be tasked with this role of, like, actually arguing this case, but she's a woman herself.
Well,
and this is obviously these what are they? The what are they called? What are they called? These Bordas people, the Mocklins.
Mocklins.
These Mocklins, obviously, are being mostly almost purely male species, but not completely. They have this strong bias towards it. But I think that Ed's coming at it from a perspective of like this is their culture. Like what are the rights of these parents? In this situation, what is the right of this culture? And Kelly pushed back against that. It's like saying like, well, what we have there has to be some sort of a limit there, because this idea of like common universal values, I guess, is sort of at what's in question here. And again, I think that this is something that the Mocklins and the other Union worlds should have probably talked about before they got into
this seems like
bed
this should be
together,
in the paperwork at least.
yeah. But I guess it never came
Well,
up.
The Mocklins just tell everyone that they're a one gender species, right? Like that this
Right.
doesn't happen.
Right. So,
But now
and
we know whether it does.
It does.
I guess
but
the Union is learning that this actually does happen. For
it's
the first time.
it's obviously it's rare on paper, but we find out that there's probably a lot of different children born as females that are getting this conversion therapy or this surgery. So who's to say how many? How often?
Well,
this
yeah,
really
because
does
they
happen?
mentioned somewhere that it's like every 75 years.
Right, but
one case
that can't
happens,
be
but
true.
that can't be
No.
true because
Can't be true because you've got Clyden, you've got the
Clyden,
one in the cave. I can't remember her name.
And now you have Topa, right?
And Topa,
And
right?
Topa, yeah.
So yeah, like I think that this is very thought provoking, and I don't know if there's a clear cut right answer here.
I don't think there is.
How far?
And-
More
yeah.
specifically, how far like Ed and Kelly and the rest of the other worlds push on this, but obviously, like I think that there is a lot of good here because you see how Bordas's complete perspective is completely changed because he watches this movie and he gets like this but the influence of these humans has a positive effect, right? In our estimation, because we're judging basically the Mocklins for being this and that, right? And yeah, like I think that trying to impose any type of thing onto another culture, whether it's good or not, is always going to be met with resistance.
Sure, but I also, I mean, on the other side, that a culture that tries to be completely homogenous is never. That's just fascism. Like,
sure,
it's not really a good thing.
No, it's not a good thing. No,
yeah,
I think we agree on
conform.
that.
Yeah, we do because we're humans.
Right. But I guess but even if you just take it on another example, like if we don't like something about, I don't know, Russia, for instance, and say, hey, Russia, we think you should be like, us or in whatever way. And Russia's like, screw you. I'm not doing that. Or whatever country. I think that that's like been the ongoing thing into, why the Prime Directive, I think also kind of makes sense is because, trying to impose that onto others before, if they don't want to, just is a recipe for failure.
Yeah, it's a fool's errand to impose your will on other cultures, but this isn't really imposing your will on this culture. You're not changing anything. You're not making a change. So it's squishy in my head. It's not fully formed.
Well, we'll come back to that.
Let's come back to it.
Yeah.
We're getting a little too deep into this right now. So
it's a deep episode.
It is a deep
It
episode,
is.
though. It is. It's up there with like Tin Man and some other stuff, right? So it's
Well, there's a lot of Star Trek episodes that are exactly
Very much
this,
like this,
like
yeah.
the Riker's one with
The Measure of a Man.
Measure of a
no,
Man.
not Measure of a Man. With the genderless species. and forming them, like that's almost the same episode.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway,
or Trip's episode in Enterprise with the
where he gets pregnant in the boat.
No.
Oh no, the other one. I know.
The progenitor
with the third
one.
gender.
Yeah. Right.
Progenitor
Yeah.
one,
And that was also a deep episode. Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
But Kelly, I guess Kelly's plan is let's get the crew involved and try to change Bordas's mind. So the first thing she tries to do is basically put him in a boxing match with obviously Miss Superpower here. So it you know, they spar a bit. She's I don't want to say obnoxious, but I think it's the only word I can give. Like she goes out of her way to be obnoxious in this scene. And I think it's supposed to be like intimidating, but it just comes off as obnoxious. And I think in a way, Bortus actually kind of shows that. He's like, wow, like, you know, whatever, lady.
Like I don't find that okay. So the whole point of this, like this boxing match, and later on, Alara will crush like the gavel thing with her hands.
And it's just to show that, you know, because they have this pre-construct that women are inferior and they're weak and all that, right?
Right. But like their counter to that is that, well, you know, but you're a Selayan, and a Selayan male would still be stronger than a Selayan female. Like, not that that's what matters, but I think that this, like, as the way to convince Bortus is not that compelling or convincing. No. And I think that I'm glad it doesn't work. I'm glad that it's actually the Rudolph thing that is actually the right thing, because I don't, whether or not, you know, Alara can beat him up in a boxing match, I don't think that's going to be the thing that's going to convince anybody.
And he's a big dude too.
What I like about it, about this not convincing him, is that her just simply being able to box with him or to keep up with him doesn't earn her right to be equal to him. She is already, and that's why the Rudolph story is better.
Correct. Yeah, I think we agree.
Regardless of her
makes
strength.
more sense. Yeah. So, but I like the idea of this scene, and I'm glad that they didn't make this the scene that kind of turned him, because if they made this the scene that turned him, I think we would have kind of got off mark.
Oh, I would have given this a 2.
Yeah, because it's definitely it was the right call not to allow this to be the thing that turned him.
But what I did like about it, I guess, was just to see how the Mocklins, like, they're pretty sturdy. They're not as strong as the Salayans, but, like, you know, you get the idea.
He can take the punch.
Yeah.
He can take it. And
if she did that to a human, she would probably kill him.
Oh,
right?
she would have killed him. Yeah.
You know,
so you know, he's pretty strong. And then he kind of goes off in a grump. He's like, "Oh, this is stupid," basically.
Oh, he's like, "I'm tired of my shipmates
getting
involved in my personal business,
in my child's life." And I do understand that sentiment. Yeah, like, I think that, you know, he's like,
well, I think as fathers, I think we've all experienced that at one time or another.
But he's also asked them to be involved by asking for the doctor to do the surgery and asking Ed to order her to do the surgery. So he's involved everyone. Well, at least those two people.
Well, good point. Actually, I like it.
Also a good point.
Yeah,
for sure. So anyway, the next scene is him going home, and Clyden happens to be there, and he's got this ice pack on his head, and he's like, you know, what happened, kind of thing. And he's just like, oh, you know, I can't even remember what answer he gave him, but it wasn't the real truth. It was something along the lines of, you know, he got hit by something or something.
Yeah, he makes up some kind of thing.
But he makes up something, and Clyden's just like, whoa, why didn't you just go to the doctor? They could fix that right away. They just, you know, do a little thing and good to go, right? You know, kind of like Beverly, you know, every time somebody has a broken arm and 2 seconds later it's fixed, right? You know, same idea. And he's like, oh, you know, but, you know, it's his pride that's the bigger issue here, right? He's like, you know, and it just so happens that Gordon and Lamar.
I love that it's these two doofuses too that fucking convince him.
Well, and later on, there's a scene where basically Kelly uses Gordon as kind of an example as to why men aren't that smart.
But like this is exactly what is the right thing I think the right approach. You know, they come in non-confrontational, non-judgmental, and they're like, let's just talk and socialize.
Watch a movie.
Let's have some beers and watch a movie.
Yeah. Right. He's like, got beers.
Sure.
I'm not totally sure how practical those beer bottles are, though.
I'm not a big fan of them.
Yeah, me neither. But they got the popcorn, which is good. Looks like he's got onion rings as well, or at least Cheetos, maybe
Funyuns.
Oh, maybe Funyuns. Could be Funyuns. Yeah. You know, who knows? But either way, the future is good. All right. So, but anyway, and I love the fact that everybody is engulfed in this like child animation from like the 60s.
It's a classic. Like when I saw it was
classic,
this back in 2017, and of course I remembered it watching it again. But I love this film. It's a Christmas classic.
It is,
The one who does the voice of Rudolph is actually from Burlington. She passed away a few years ago. And she died in Burlington, a couple years ago as well.
Burlington is where we all reside, just for anybody who doesn't know.
Right, for context there, but this is a great morality tale. I think it's something that you can show quickly and a lot of people can connect to it, whether you're if they pick something more adult, it's a chance you wouldn't get that.
Well, the funny thing is I remember seeing this the first time, and when this came up I'm like, isn't that a Canadian thing? But no, it's actually not. It's it's known everywhere.
So I always assumed it
was Canadian. But I love how engaged Bortus is in it. Like he just keeps leaning closer and closer and closer, and he's like, he's got to watch the whole thing, right? And it's just like he's look at him, he's just like, he's so intense in this thing, right? And the other guys in the background are just kind of like smiling, having a good time, and Bortus is
Gordon looks like he's emotional about it. Like he's really he's really into Rudolph.
He's got a bit of a tear to him there. Yeah, for sure.
This is great. I don't think that these, like Lamar and Beloy, intended to win him over in this way. I don't think they had.
Well, I think they had the idea of it, but I don't think
vaguely, just like
win. I think they just wanted a reason to drink. Like I think.
Well, I think that they wanted to try to maybe talk him out of where his mindset was, but maybe not. I don't think that they were expecting this movie to hit him as much as it did.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, man, whatever.
He's like, I must go. And he gets
watch
up
the child.
Watch the child. And then I love the line they have after that. He goes, he just left his kid with two drunk idiots. It's like, oh man.
And then Malloy's like, reminds me of my dad.
Reminds me of my dad. God, I miss him.
And that movie's only 52 minutes long, like that original Rudolph show. Because I was like, how long was Clyden like going to shop or whatever it was, like the Replimat? I guess it was only an hour.
Yeah, because Clyden's at the Replimat, which we
wants a new outfit when he goes back to Mockless.
He's going back to Mockless, so he's doing that, and there's somebody in the background who's replicating like a vase or something. Like it's. Oh, actually, I didn't catch it apparently, but like it's this ugly white vase that's like got all these like angles on it and stuff. I'm like, they shouldn't even allow that in the future. But anyway, what can you do? But basically they have the discussion. He basically says to Clyden, he's like, we need to let her be a girl. And Clyden's like, absolutely not. He's very, very stern. And he's like, I must tell you the great tale of Rudolph. And stuff like that. And then he's like, and then he yells at the other guy. Yeah, the other guy, he's like,
"Get out, privacy, leave." Yeah,
he's like, "Oh, good one." I love how it. I think it said, "Have a slimy day" on the pillow.
Yeah, he was buying that as a gift. Come on.
Yeah, but anyway, they have this conversation again, and it's the same conversation we've had 4 times already, but now it's against these two, right? So basically, he's like, this Rudolph, he had a deformation, but it turned out to be great and all this, and he's like trying to explain it, but I just love how he explains it because it's like totally like a foreign concept the way he's explained it. But when you look back at it, you're like, yeah, that pretty much sums it up. Rudolph had a big nose and it lit up. And,
I guess the main thing Bortus tries to convince him with is like, we don't know what our child will grow up to be. Therefore, something like that might be considered a deformity could actually turn out to be an advantage. Could also, adversely change who they are. And I never get the idea that Clyden gets to see this Rudolph story, or if he does, I guess he just dismisses it. But
I don't think he gets to see it.
No,
which would kind of make more sense if he saw it too, because then maybe you can convince both of them.
But this is where, Clyden's not budging on the position that they both had before, and this puts them at odds basically for the rest of it. Not just even beyond this episode, really. There you go. Yet Clyden was born female as well, and was converted as a child.
Yes,
right?
This is when Bortus learns that, right? And he's like, "Why didn't you tell me?" blah blah blah. And he's like,
I love
was
that Clyde.
female.
I love that Clyden didn't know. Like,
Yeah, until somebody examined him later on.
until
they
they
were
were
an
a union
adult,
doctor. Yeah.
Well, it kind of gives you the impression that when he was examined by, the Mocklin doctors, they just keep that information private.
Oh yeah, they do.
They never
they
say
don't
it, right?
tell
They
anybody. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically a conspiracy as well, right? Like it's a whole bunch of things at once. But basically, they're now back in the room. They're packing for this trip to what is it, Mockless? I guess Mockless.
Yep. Mockless.
And he's like, I was a girl, and when I was born, and my parents transformed me, and look at me. Basically, he's very happy with that, and he's like, I think she should have the right to choose and stuff like that. So it's.
Well, I also like here he's like, why didn't you tell me? You lied, and he says, I didn't want to lose you. And here Bortus says, I love you. That has not changed.
Yeah.
It's good. That's good. Good right
That's
there.
good writing.
And yeah. And then he goes on like, why didn't you tell me?
Yeah.
But I mean,
I don't condemn Clyden so much for keeping this to himself.
absolutely not.
Considering their culture, but
why would he have to tell him?
Right.
Well, because realistically, by Mocklin rule, he is male. So
yes, there's no reason to tell him.
Yeah. Cute kid though, very cute kid.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I can't remember how they ended this conversation.
Can we go back? What, like that painting on the wall? Go one more.
I think it's actually
you're going the other way. No.
Am I going the wrong way?
Yeah. There.
Oh, there we go.
That painting on the wall, I guess, is Mockless with all the
it's Mockless,
yeah,
and it's literally just like stacks.
I didn't even pick up on that.
I didn't pick it up either. That's pretty funny.
But I feel like I need like a picture of Hamilton with all of the smokestacks on fire.
Yeah,
it's like sort of a homage to that.
Yeah. It's like or it's like Canadian Bacon when they're like, hey, I miss the United States, and then they go, home sweet home, but they're just pointing the camera at Hamilton.
Yeah, it's just Hamilton. So we get to see the Mocklin ship, which I was happy to see. So that was cool. They finally kind of show up, and they are now going to talk into the ready room, I guess their version of a ready room.
This is great.
Yeah, I can't remember all the little finite details, so feel free to jump in on this. But
just Kelly being like,
Kelly is definitely the star of this.
Sorry, I can't do that. I got a case of the tits.
Yeah, I got a case of the tits. He's like, they treat being female like having, chronic diarrhea.
Diarrhea.
Like she's really pissed about this. Like she's totally angry about this. Now this guy, I guess he's kind of like a high up general.
He's the captain of the Mocklin ship.
But I think he's also there to enforce as well.
Well, he's here to like take Bortus and Clyden and Topa back to the planet, and basically Ed's like, no, that's not going to happen. And I think that basically by the end of this conversation, Bortus says, because the two parents don't agree, he demands arbitration. Let's go to court.
And I like how Kelly's like, arbitration? You mean like court? Or something like that.
Yeah, their version of it.
Yeah.
And that this needs to be mediated basically. Because
but I loved how Mercer's like, absolutely not. I will not represent you, but Kelly will.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing too here is you get the idea that this Mocklin captain might even come to military action. He might even be willing to fire on the Orville over.
Yeah, you get the impression that he's getting hostile.
Well, right after this, he threatens Mercer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Like this is not just like, I guess, like a taboo in the Mocklin culture. It seems to be like a really big deal for them in this stage of their history, at least.
So basically, Clyden and Bortus go. They take the shuttle to go to the other ship, and the Orville is going to follow them basically to Mockless, right? Mockless,
which we're told takes about 2 weeks to get there. Anyway, right?
Yeah, they did mention that. I was going to actually ask you guys if that made sense to you guys, because they're like, oh yeah, 2 weeks, but we don't really get a sense of how long it's been between the two scenes. So it's like, I guess it could.
I just imagine it's 2 weeks. They just jump cut it.
They just jump cut it.
Yeah. Like, but yeah, this journey. I was like, there was ton of time for Clyden to watch the Rudolph. Right?
Absolutely. He could have even watched it on his.
And how could you not be swayed by Rudolph?
Right.
It's how we all
Christmas.
learn this stuff.
You know?
So, but anyway, they come out of warp, and the two ships have now arrived at Moklis. And from space, Moklis looks like a big metropolitan kind of environment. And then they launch the shuttle and go down. And as they're going down, they're like, nobody says it, but they're all kind of insinuating, yeah, this is kind of a shithole. Like, this is not nice. But basically,
how do they even breathe?
Yeah, how do they even breathe? They've literally like contaminated the entire environment.
Right. This kind of
reminds me. You also
of
get the impression they live underground as well. So
they live inside like these structures or whatever.
Well, structures, but they also said something like they live underground or something as well. Because I remember saying something.
What we find out in like future episodes too is that the Moclans are extremely adaptive to like harsh environments, and they can survive here easier than a human could anyway.
Like this is nothing to them, whereas to us it chokes us out, right? So
it's partly why they evolved into this mostly male version of the species.
But I did like the fact that there's explosions going on around them, and they're clueless as to what it is. And then somebody's like, by the way, they also develop a lot of weapons, and they just kind of go their own way and speed up the process and do whatever they want, kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, like, some explosions are happening right beside them, and then he's like, holy shit, and they're all panicking. And then the Moclan leader is like, yes, I forgot to tell you that there's a new section of airspace where we're going to be testing weapons, and we forgot about that, and we didn't tell you, basically, and it was part of your flight path. and then who is it? Is it
Gordon?
Malloy? Yeah, Gordon's like, I'm gonna need you to be ready with a pair of pants. And then a couple seconds later, the Moclans are like, we will have pants ready for you.
I love that.
And Kelly's like, wow,
he's kidding. He's like, no, I'm not.
He's just kidding. And he goes, no, I'm not.
I need those pants.
So he's basically shit himself, which is kind of funny. So anyway, they eventually get down and they go into this like legislation building, which just looks like an oil refinery. And I love how everything is these square things. Like they have like the big gong for the square here, and then they have the other one that he uses to like, gate order, like a gavel kind of thing.
The Moclans are not about subtlety. I think they're very just kind of
they're very Klingon, I guess, in a way.
Yeah, they got this brutalist look. But...
Yeah, well, the Klingons, even though they're kind of a savage people, they also have the court system, and they run through these things like that. But basically, the entire conversation goes back and forth about like circumcision and whether that was good, that's considered mutilation, and
which is also barbaric. So
but I thought that the circumcision sort of analogy or just calling to that was important, because I think that like for people who are circumcised, they go, there's nothing wrong with it, and the people who are uncircumcised go, what the hell, like myself, what the hell are you talking about? You're cutting up part of your dick, but like that's something that where we respect parents' decision, or a culture's decision, even though I agree with Kevin, it's barbaric. But
I don't think we should.
I don't think we should either, but I think that there's a lot of resistance to that, and I think if you try to impose it's going to probably have the opposite effect in all.
No, you've got to convince people. You can't force people. There's
right. This question I have to throw on you two, and I want to see who answers it.
Yeah.
Sam asks, "What is the purpose of circumcision?"
To prevent boys from masturbating. That's
I think
its original intent.
I think it wasn't about because like I always heard back in the desert or something that it could get infected more or something, or I don't know. I think you're right. My dick works just fine if anyone needs to know, but it's
I think we're getting into a point where we probably don't need to cover. I think it's really what it comes down to.
All right, host.
I have no interest in knowing about your dick and its status.
It works, Jody.
You know what? I never doubted it. You have
harder than ever, right?
Harder than ever.
Yeah. That's one thing about Dave. He's always harder than ever.
Right. But like, there's all, but in there's like in the Bible and like the Torah. This goes back like thousands of years, especially in like the Jewish culture and religion. It's all about this covenant with God and whatever. And I think it's something that we're
done for religious reasons at this point, but there are reasons why you would have to in some scenarios, but it's a very
sure. But as an adult, like we don't do.
Well, you don't do it as an adult.
We don't. Yeah, you do.
Do they really?
If you get an infection, yeah, they'll, and it's quite painful.
That sounds like it.
But what we don't do is like take a child's appendix out in case.
Right.
So like in case they get an infection.
Prevent it from exploding later.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the reasoning too later on was, oh, well, it could get infected. So if we take it off now, they won't have any memory of the pain. And you don't do that. That is against the Hippocratic Oath. It just shouldn't be done.
Our comment sections has turned into a circumcision support network now.
Well, there you go. Well, or even like earlier in the episode where Bortus brought up the whole cleft palate analogy, and said like if that's something you would correct at birth as a defect, right? But you don't wait till the child's old enough to decide that they want it.
The thing that I think that's interesting is the fact that they've brought up these analogies actually makes you think a little bit harder about this. Like, wait a second, we are at the point where this could be mutilation. This could be something else.
I think Mercer's third leg analogy was the best one.
Which he was talking about with Kelly in the earlier,
when he was like, we would conform them to our species, even though other species do have 3 legs,
Right.
That was the most sort of apropos to what's going on, more than circumcision.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Or even cleft palate.
Yeah. Like, exactly.
And it's really hard with screenshots to kind of get the message across here on what's going on in this courtroom scene for the most part. But it's basically back and forth. Kelly makes a
the whole cross-examination here on Bortus. He's like, "Did you go on a date with Clyden? What did you do?" And they're like, "Yes, we went to a battle simulator and we killed many people together. We killed 70 like people in the simulator." And he's like, "And you will deny your child that experience?" But it's like it's a stupid argument that the advocate makes. I think the circumcision one later on with the doctor, I think, is the best thing that this prosecutor from the Mocklin side does to like make his case.
Yeah.
But which is still not convincing, but
because the cleft palate, like, let's be honest, there's no one that really says no to that. Like it's such a simple procedure, and it's something that can definitely help kids later on.
But what if they did? What if the parents did refuse it? Right?
Well, and that's the thing. If the parents refused it, what do you do, right? So
Right.
and I think it brings up a lot. This is, and I think Murphy did really say it best when he said, "This is a lot for a third episode of a series." Like this is going way down the rabbit hole, in the first season of a series.
But I get kind of why they did this, because I think, the show is not just about jokes and like, gag after gag, that the show is actually going to come with some real hard hitting morality sort of tales and like, and thought exercises.
There's a lot of people that think that the show is just nothing but Seth MacFarlane, being an ass for a half an hour to an hour. Like,
that's what I thought it was going to be. And I was so pleasantly surprised that it is not.
Well, and if you even look at the humor aspect of things, there was a lot of humor in this episode, even though realistically it's not a very funny subject. But
no.
But they put in my opinion, they put in the right amount of humor to keep the story going, but to also lighten up the mood every so often. Like obviously the scene with Gordon drinking, and
the scene on the holodeck there with we're gonna have a dance off to decide who is the strongest cowboy.
All these little silly things that they've added in, but I know there's a lot of people that are against the show because of the fact that they're true diehard Star Trek people and they don't think there should be that much humor in it. And I think it's an interesting mix, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to cover it with you guys. So
it's a good balance. I think like I love the show.
Sure, not all the jokes are great. I will definitely concede to that.
Most of them are,
but most of them are pretty good.
Most of them are good, and so I think that your mileage may vary on joke to joke, but it's
absolutely. Some people think some things are funnier than others, and that's how it works. But overall, this entire courtroom seems very, it's very courtroom. I think there's not much more we can say. Prosecutor going against the defendant all the time.
There's a jury. There's a judge. Yeah,
there's a jury of all Mocklins that all look literally identical. Like they're very close to identical. There's one scene later on. I think I got a shot of it where it's like literally it's like a carbon copy of most of them. But Kelly really does try her hardest, and there's times where Kelly kind of scores a point, and then there's times where she doesn't. And there comes a point where Kelly's like, well, what about this, I guess we'll call it a gavel cube, that the main Mocklin guy here is, using. And she's like, well, are you able to, bend and destroy this thing? And the guy's like, no, that's pure titanium. There's no way you could do that. Right. No Mocklin can do that. And, obviously he gets Alara to, she throws it to Alara, and Alara's like, yeah, let me crumble that up into nothingness. Clearly it's just, a box that they've covered with with tinfoil, but the purpose is there.
But just like the boxing match, like I said earlier, this doesn't really prove anything.
But I think that's the reason why they did this, because they wanted to kind of show Kelly kind of misfiring again. And then kind of
that
I think her defense is mostly garbage. Like,
it's absolutely garbage.
It's really bad.
But
even
I think
with
that's
Gordon,
the point.
and
She's trying, right? So it's
yeah.
But in the fact that Alara can put this into a nice smooth sphere pretty easily, then give it back. What I thought was interesting though is it's a sphere there, and then a couple shots later it's back to the cube again. So I don't know if that was just a consistency thing. Oh, there you go. A lot of them look the same.
Are you saying they all look alike?
Very close, yes. That's the one thing we have to give Discovery. They really did mix up those Klingons.
Yeah.
Not for good, but they did. So then she goes with the Gordon defense, which is pretty funny.
To prove that men are not always smarter than women.
Yeah,
yes,
men are not always smarter than women. And I like the fact that she's like, these are going to be tough, and you're probably not going to answer them, but humor me. And he's like, oh no, this is for the kid. I'm totally cool with this, right? Like he's like, I don't mind being mocked. It's fine.
I love at the end of this. She's like, she's again calls him an idiot, then turns and says, "I'm sorry." He goes, "Totally okay." Totally. Like, totally okay.
Yeah, he's fine with it. He's accepted what he is. But like his answers to these questions are absolutely ludicrous. Like they're
what was the capital of the United States?
Yeah, what was the capital of Nabisco? It almost reminds me of you guys ever see that Mike Judge movie, Idiocracy or whatever it's called?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great movie. Definitely kind of proves the point. And Terry Crews is in it, and he's awesome. But basically very much the same type of thing where people are just so stupid that they have no idea what they're talking about. But she kind of goes through this for a couple minutes. It's pretty funny. And then she's like, so if this idiot can get things wrong, half the time, obviously, there's a flaw in your system here.
Yes, he's an officer in the service. Yes, he has a position of authority, and he might be the best pilot, but he is a fool.
He is an idiot. Yeah. And she's like, sorry, Gordon. And he's like, hey, no problem.
Totally okay.
Totally okay.
Totally okay.
And then we get Claire on the stand, to see her viewpoint. And basically the Mocklin guy actually does a pretty good job with Claire.
This is the circumcision part. Yeah. With
the circumcision thing. And Claire is kind of getting hung up on it. Like she's trying to answer it, but she's kind of getting hung up on it in a way, which I thought was kind of neat. But the guy who played the prosecutor, I don't know what actor it was, but he's definitely pretty cool. Good actor anyway. Then Mercer just kind of like gets up and leaves. And I'm not totally sure how he got to this connection. And I don't think they even explained it, did they?
No, they don't.
No. He just all of a sudden says he calls up to Isaac, and he's being really quiet about it. And he's like, Isaac, I'm going to send you these, these readings. I want you to scan the planet and see if you can find it. And he's like, oh yeah, I did find it. Here's the coordinates. And he sends them back. And he's like, okay, well,
he might have just got the idea to look for any Mocklin female on Mockless.
But the only thing that bothers me about this is the fact that they don't establish how he got to this point.
Yeah,
so
they don't. They don't at all.
It's kind of, in my opinion, like shave down the court scene a little bit. Give me something that gives me the how he gets the realization to do this.
It feels like they cut out a scene here for sure.
It almost does feel like they shot it and then they just left it out, kind of thing. But he's very happy with himself once he gets the results, but we don't know what the results are yet. And then he calls over to Lamar and he's like, yeah, we're going on a trip. Apparently in his favorite rocket ship. If you get that reference, you're definitely a father. But anyway, Backyardigans, if nobody knows what that is.
Oh, I know
can't be the only one. Yeah.
Oh, I know the Backyardigans.
I know it was a terrible reference, but still it was funny. Yeah, they drove me absolutely nuts when my daughter was growing up. But anyway, you see them and they're climbing up this, which could be, the same thing from same place they shot all those Star Trek fight scenes, but but
the Gorn. Watch out for the Gorn.
Watch out for the Gorn. It's the Gorn. Come on, Dave. You're supposed to have that sound clip ready.
It's the Gorn.
I can't believe.
Oh my God, he does have it ready.
Did you see that? Wow. Dave is spot on that sound stuff. But anyway, they end up going and they look, they find this cave. They start going through the cave. And as they're going through the cave, there's actually a shadow figure right here, which they subtly kind of show, but you don't really notice it unless you're really looking at it. But at the time, like I paused for a second and went, wait, that's not a shadow of any of the people. Kind of reminded me of that Jordy episode where he like turns invisible and he gets all the veins on him. Can't remember the name of that one. Do you remember that episode?
The one you mean, though. Yeah, I know the one you mean. I don't remember the name of it either.
I don't remember it either. It's not a very good episode, quite honestly, but still.
Well, we'll get to it on our Star Trek: The Next Generation podcast every Tuesday.
That's going to be a while because I think that's season 3. But anyway, they end up coming across this lady. Turns out she's female and she's a Moclan.
So this is
we don't know this yet because they flip back to the court for a second.
Havina, is that the name?
I think it is. I think you're right. I think it's
Havina is the characters. Yeah.
But basically, this is more bantering back and forth from Kelly, trying to deal with it. And basically, they say to the guy, the guy's getting upset because they've asked for like a 2-hour kind of wait as Mercer goes and investigates this evidence. And he's like, well, we're kind of done. Like, we've been sitting here for 2 hours. Your guy hasn't shown up yet. And then, of course, he shows up at the last second kind of thing. And, doors open. And sure enough, this lady arrives. And everybody in the chamber is just like dumbfounded by this. Except for Kelly. She's happy. She's like, oh, there is. What is this? It was faster before I could tell him.
I'm so fast. I even beat Norman to the punch.
Crazy.
It's the Gorn.
It is the Gorn. But anyway, so Kelly's like, oh, this is interesting. And so this lady is like, I would like to give some evidence here. And he's like, okay. So she starts talking and we find out that her parents took her up into the mountain because they let her be female. They put her in the mountain. Then I guess her parents have died since. And she thought she was going to stay up there forever and not have any connection. And then obviously these guys showed up and saw that.
But it turns out that Havina is also like a famous author from their world.
Turns out she's actually a philosopher author. Yeah. And
respected, but
a massively respected one. Yeah. And everybody thought she was male, which is even more interesting. And I think there's a scene where somebody quotes this literature and then she says, you should ask him. Right. And he just kind of looks at her and then obviously you figure out it's her that's actually the philosopher / writer. But anyway, and basically she says, I've had a great life and, I've been female my whole life and I've had a great life. And, you guys are making a mistake here. And this is where we think, okay, well, the episode, it's going to go their way. Like we're going to end up having this little girl Moclan kicking around the ship and all this. And, she pleads her case and says, I've had a great life, blah, blah, blah. And, Kelly's pretty happy about this. He grills her about something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but this is where he talks about the author. It's like, so-and-so said this. And she's like, well, you should ask him. Turns out it's her that actually said that. But anyway, so everybody's just she's got this smug look on her face. I hate people who are that smug, but anyway, I guess she can be smug for this one.
She's earned the smugness. Don't worry.
Yeah. So the verdict comes in. Actually, yeah, because at this point,
I think they're still waiting for the verdict doesn't come right away. I think the
verdict doesn't come in yet. Yeah, they're just watching. well, it's not Topa yet. It's just the girl.
Right. But there's a kind of this feeling, I think, from Ed and Kelly. Oh, we're probably going to win. Yeah, we probably did
they
it.
think they're going to win. They're like, oh, Clyden is changed in his opinion, but he's like, the court, there's no way after that the court's they can't rule against us after that.
Bortus
is like, I'm not so sure.
Well, Bortus is a lot more familiar with the ways than they are.
Yeah.
Right? So it's we get another establishing shot of what appears to be Hamilton, and then
you can see the escarpment too.
There's the escarpment. It's in the background there. Yeah. It looks a little different than that, but we'll go with it. So anyway, the verdict comes in. Turns out they have ruled that it's still going to happen.
Yep.
Which is a very interesting way to end a show, which is supposed to be a comedy, or at least that's what people perceived it as being.
I kept wondering about myself, like, would Star Trek have ended it where, like, they do win the day in the court, and and is this like something?
You know what? I had the exact same thought. So, and I was actually going to ask you guys, what do you think?
I don't think Star Trek would have ended it that way. I don't think they end it that way, and they don't end it that way in the Trip episode.
There are examples, but most Star Trek episodes have a happy ending. I think I guess,
sure.
I guess most Orville episodes do too, kind of, but
I would say the majority of them anyway. Yeah,
but not all of them.
This one
season
actually
3, probably not, but
this one actually does kind of have a happy ending, even though this part of it doesn't go. But Bortus's acceptance of what has happened, and he's gonna love the kid anyway, and it's a happy ending.
Yeah, in a way, it's a happy ending, but it's also we saw the fight.
It's not the ending you want.
It's not the ending you wanted to happen. Yeah. So, but anyway, and then the Mocklin doctor comes out, and now it's Topa the boy,
because they're willing to give the name now that the surgery's been done, because the baby had no name for a while. And I think did they ask Bortus, like, are you still going to try to do it with Clyden? And Bortus is like, I'm going to give it a shot. He goes,
he's still my spouse, and even though we don't see eye to eye, which is something that I think everybody here can also come to grips with sometimes, is you don't see eye to eye with your spouse.
Well, I like actually before this, I don't think we saw it in the screenshots, but Clyden tries to reach out to him after the verdict, and they're walking away.
I thought,
but then turns away and doesn't.
He doesn't. Yeah.
There, right there. Yeah.
Right. But then doesn't try.
Yeah, he's about to touch him, and then he's just like, no, I got to give him.
Yeah, it's probably best I don't. Right.
Not a good time right now. Yeah. So anyway, so Topa comes out, which we see more of Topa in later episodes, but not too much. But we do see a little bit of her.
Well, this episode has like 1 or 2 sequels that follow up on this.
It does still follow up on this. Yeah, absolutely. But and then you see kind of like, these two now buddies, I guess, kind of, walking in defeat essentially, because they have been defeated. This was not a happy ending for these guys at all. Even though we got kind of a happy ending with the two.
Well, it wasn't the outcome that anybody but Clyden wanted, but it's but this is what it comes to pass, and I think they do the right thing. They go through this legal process. They lose, and like they're not happy about it, but they have to accept it,
But I have to admit, I did like this part where they gave a Rudolph, and Rudolph chewed on the Rudolph, and it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool. And that's the end of the episode, guys. So it's I think it's a great episode. I think
me too.
The court scenes are a bit draggy. They
only because Kelly's
arguments are great.
Whole case is
the arguments aren't great to begin with. Yeah, exactly. So it's I get that. I guess we don't have our fun facts man, so I guess I'll step into that role.
Okay.
Do you have it ready, Dave?
I sure do.
Well, then let's get some deep. What do we call it for you?
Details discovered by Dave.
I don't have a song for that. I'm sorry.
Okay, originally this was the second written episode of season 1. According to the director of this episode, Brandon Braga, who was the showrunner for Voyager, Star Trek Voyager for many years, they wanted this episode to be much later in the season, but they decided to pull it up in the air date to the third episode because we had to know, is the audience going to embrace the show for what it really is? So it was kind of like they were like, we need to come out big here. But the plan,
well, I guess in a way that's a good way to do that then.
Yeah. In the scene where Bortus, Malloy, Lamar watch Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Malloy looks like he is about to cry. Actor Scott Grimes, who portrays Malloy, is confirmed that he was holding back real tears. He said, "That's real, though. I'm not kidding. I grew up with that movie, and the fact that I'm sitting there watching it every time that makes me cry. So I just went with it." There you go.
That's good.
Reptilian Alien, the credited title of the alien in the matter synthesizer room with the pillow, Have a Slimy Day, is a cameo by Julius Sharp, a writer and co-producer on Family Guy.
Oh, okay. That's neat. I don't know who that is, but it's
me either.
Yeah.
Ed tells Captain Vorak, who is the captain of that Mocklin ship, that he has board games like Scrabble, Candyland, and Monopoly for entertainment. And Ed insists that he be the automobile piece in the episode Mad
he could be the thimble.
Idolatry. Ed suggests that the crew plays Monopoly while they wait for the multiphasic planet to reappear. So there'll be more Monopoly references to come.
But in a way, and that's something that Star Trek never really gathers because there is a lot of waiting, right? Not everything happens exactly that second. So it's neat to see that they have something to do to occupy their time other than go to 10 forward, right?
For sure.
So.
The dancing scene with Vasquez, John and Ed and Gordon was shot in Santa Clarita, California. Actor Jay Lee, who plays John Lamar, had to learn how to ride a horse. He never had done so.
Yeah, he didn't look like he was happy to be on it. You could see he was very stiff, where the other two are just kind of going with it. So I guess they must have had more experience. I'm definitely scared of horses. I love them, but I'm definitely scared of them. So
a white handheld device on Claire's desk is revealed in the second season episode called The Happy Refrain to be a follicle stimulator used to grow a mustache on Bortus.
So yes. Okay. Yeah, I remember. Actually, that's a good episode. It's so funny.
Yeah.
When Bortus holds Topa while boarding a shuttle to Mockless, baby Topa was in fact a puppet controlled by Jeff Edwards and Alejandro Diaz. Edwards and Diaz are credited as the Mocklin baby puppeteer number 1 and number 2, respectively.
Wow.
So
that's important.
It was a puppet baby.
Practical effects.
Yeah. We kind of said this episode takes place over 2 weeks in October and November of 2419. In 2056, a genetic engineer learns how to target and eradicate cancer cells. That's mentioned in this episode.
Hopefully.
Bortus and Clyden
that comes true.
Bortus and Clyde have been together for 6.5 years. So 2413 would be their year they got together. We saw that asteroid that was going to hit the planet that they kind of lasered at the beginning would have collided in 1 month and 17 days, which would have put it near Christmas.
Yeah, I think we lost you during that point, Dave. But
yeah, that was when
we were having a giggle about the shoving ray. Turn on the shoving
beam. Yeah,
the shoving beam. That's it. Yeah,
and
also the fact that in Star Trek it would have been a 3-hour thing. That comet's gonna hit in 3 hours, and we're like, it's gonna hit in about a month. So they got
give it a month.
Kelly even says oh well, we got time then.
I love that the thing that they're trying to solve in this episode is not an emergency.
Yeah, not an issue at all. They got a month to deal with it. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, that was they're like boom, boom, push, done, mission over.
That's what I like about one of the things I like about this show, because it takes some of those things that we take for granted in Star Trek and kind of runs with them as part of a joke, right? Which I think is kind of funny as well. So, because we've all thought of weird things that are happening during a Star Trek episode, and we're like, "What the hell? Why would that happen?"
For sure. I'll give you a couple more. In terms of references, I'm sure you guys know this. The title "About a Girl" may be a play on the title of a 2002 film about a boy, which itself is a reference to a Nirvana song about a girl from the 1989 album Bleach. Alara tells Kelly that taught her boxing and that the young lieutenant finds the sport to be an art form. She will return to boxing as a form of stress relief in the 2420 episode Firestorm. We heard girls just want to have fun inside of the environmental simulator with the Vasquez scene. Kelly quotes the lyrics of Destiny Child's Survivor.
Oh,
to
yes.
Mortis.
We forgot to talk about that.
And he's like, these are wise words. You know, who said these things?
These are wise words by these 12 people.
These 15 individuals, these 15 writers that no one knows. I know that song had so many writers, but
I love it. Those are very powerful words.
yeah, very powerful words.
I like how she delivers it, though. She delivers it not singing, but she delivers it so seriously. It's like they must have had to do like 10 takes on that. Like, there's no way you could get that out seriously, right?
On the witness stand, Gordon answers that 2 of the 4 chambers of the human heart are the Chamber of Secrets and the Chamber of Horrors.
Yes.
The former is a book of the Harry Potter series, and the latter was a wax museum in London, England that ran from 1802 to 2016.
Yeah.
And
really
finally,
is an idiot.
Isaac says that a single female Moclan was born every 75 years. That is real to be a lie, perpetrated by the Moclan government in Sanctuary. Borda says that there are a few born every generation, and Havina suggests it's even higher than that. Yeah. And I think that's it for the fun facts there.
Well, thank you, Dave.
Or the details discovered.
The details. Well, Delta details.
The Delta details, if you will. The double details.
Now, the master of numbers must come in and show us his Excel prowess.
Indeed. Although I had taken it down when I rebooted, so I have to find the tab.
You have the same problem that I have.
Yes. Okay, here we go. And present the screen.
I'm just glad your mic's still working, Dave. That's good.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think actually, do you know what I figured out what it was, that the power cable was just loose.
Oh, well,
and
sometimes
that,
it's
like
simple as
that the AC was probably just like, you know, like my soundboard was probably just cutting out. That's probably what it was.
Makes sense.
Anyway, the ratings, guys. Let's do it.
All right.
So Jody, you want to go first?
I can't say it's a perfect episode, but it's damn near. I'm gonna give this a 9.5. Like, there's a couple little things I didn't like about it, but overall it's a solid episode.
Yeah.
I think we would use this episode as a measure to a lot of other episodes that are coming up. So
yeah, like I'm with you. Like I think it's like, what else? Like I know Kevin's probably go, it's a 10. What else do you want? And I don't know what else I would want. I guess maybe just like those little things we kind of picked out. Maybe I would just make it a little bit better, but you know, so I'm probably like at a 9.8, you know.
Oh, wow.
That's a 10 for me. Come on, it's good.
Yeah.
I got the impression
it's really good. It's a really good episode.
And people who are in the chat, we'd love to know what you guys are rating. One of these days, we got to like compile just like all the chat ratings and just put them in as one person.
Yeah, just as one.
Like
one
average them and then
average them.
As, that might be.
I'd have to go. That's quite the exercise, but we can look into that. Yes. So
I'm going to let you do that if you're going to do it, because
I am the numbers man. Okay, so IMDb gives this a 7.7. We're averaging a 9.8 tonight. But like I thought it was interesting that this didn't have like a much stronger rating than like the other 2 episodes. Like it seemed, I don't know. So whatever you want to take away from that. Norman says 9 out of 10.
Pat says 9 out of 10. So that's pretty solid.
Yeah. And well, I think that's it. That's it for we unless we have like a Murphy rating to input or an Adam rating, but I don't think we have that.
I don't think so.
Don't think we do. No, not yet. Anyway, we'll have to get them to fill in the blanks later. But you want to know what the next episode is, don't you, Dave?
I do, Jody. What's it called?
Well, you know what? If I had that tab open, I would probably.
I'll tell you what it's called. I'll tell you what it's called, Jody.
I know. I
already know the
I
answer.
Scheduled it.
It's called If the Stars Should Appear.
Oh yes. Okay. Yeah. This is the episode where they kind of go into the Earth population, kind of people.
Yeah, the USS Orville finds an alien ship adrift in space and on course to collide with a nearby star, only to discover inside a species that is completely unaware of their plight.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about
actually
religion.
this is an episode that kind of affects the whole series, because this gets called back many, many times throughout the series. Even some of the characters that show up in this show up later on, which is interesting. And the other thing that's also interesting is the main kid in the story for next week. He's actually the main character in the Ted TV show. So it's the same actor, I guess. You know, McFarlane likes to work with the same people. He always has. Plus, we also get a great cameo by a very big star, Liam Neeson.
Is he in the next one?
Liam Neeson in the next one, yeah. So,
yeah,
because he's their god, or at least the people that they base their stuff on, right?
it is kind of fun, like how Seth MacFarlane brought in people like him, like
the
Charlize
episode
Theron.
after that is Charlize Theron.
Yeah,
but he's also bringing in like these like longtime Star Trek people like Brandon Braga and Robert. Duncan
He is
and...
a uber fan of Star Trek, so that's
yeah.
This is a love letter to Star Trek. Like, he's not trying to make fun of Star Trek. This is a love letter for him.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Norm Macdonald, want to be a green snot alien? Okay, like how he got all these people on board. Sometimes and
the main cast, like, funny enough, like the main cast, other than Seth, the only other person that I've actually know much about is Gordon, because he was in Band of Brothers. He's been in a whole bunch of
Penny
stuff.
Johnson,
and of course Penny Johnson. Yes, who could forget Penny Johnson? But she's got quite the sci-fi roots.
Jeff just clued me in the other day, Kevin. I know you've watched Supernatural. I don't know how much Supernatural you've watched, Jody, but
all of it.
I know of it. I know of it, but
you know that
I'm not a super fan or anything.
The very first episode of the series where Sam's girlfriend gets burned on the ceiling. That's Kelly. Yeah.
Is it really?
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't know it was her until Jeff told me last night. I was like, "That's Kelly."
I had no idea.
Like Adrian
Palicki. Yeah.
Palicki.
Yeah, but that was 2005, right, when they made that or so. So anyway,
I think it's time to put this episode to bed. But you know what? There's more content than this. Just because we're gone doesn't mean there isn't other things you can
come back, baby. Come back. We can leave it all here with.
There's times where his mic shouldn't be working. That might be one of them.
That might be okay, but come back tomorrow night. We're gonna be talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, like we be doing here every Tuesday. Tomorrow is the last outpost that we're covering. The first introduction of the Ferengi. We're gonna see. It's kind of like setting up everything that will lead up into the Neutral Zone episode, and like there's there's a lot.
It is actually a pretty important episode when you think about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I believe Jody's on the panel tomorrow night.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Supposedly, yep.
Right.
We also got my dad and Adam coming in, so look out for that.
Oh, I see. Adam can't show up to my show, but he can show up to your show. Okay,
I guess. But we got the original series crew. You reunited for this.
Yes, actually, come to think of it, yeah, I guess that would be.
Yeah, so
there's a couple from the TOS
TOS Rewatch series. So look out for that.
Of course, can't wait to be called an idiot.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I'm kind of curious to hear what my dad thinks of these forever.
I'm really curious to hear how he talks about this episode. That should be interesting. Because it is a very campy-ish kind of episode. Like
this will be the first time it'd be the first time he's seen it too, right?
Pretty sure, yeah.
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 So, he might not even watch it before the show.
Dave's theory is that before they started this podcast, he only watched the first episode of Next Gen and the last episode of Next Gen.
Pretty much. And maybe what happened to be on TV when he walked by the room or something like that. But
or maybe you were watching.
He hadn't sat and watched too many
of those for a minute.
Yeah. So look out for that tomorrow night. Of course, we just finished up Star Trek Discovery. We'll be back to talk about Star Trek Prodigy soon in July when the new season comes out. Strange New Worlds after that, and Lower Decks presumably when the last season will drop, and all kinds of great.
I have a funny feeling that's going to get picked up by somebody.
I hope so, but we'll see.
That seems like something Netflix would at least throw like another season on for.
Yeah, and if you didn't know, Davin just did an interview with writer Dayton Ward. I guess that was on the 16th, so that was yesterday.
Are his books canon?
No. None of them are. But but that doesn't mean they're not good, and you should.
Except for A Stitch in Time.
Yeah. We're moving on, so look out for all the great podcasts here on Live Long and Podcasts, all kinds of great Star Trek. And of course, in the greater federation of podcasts, our affiliates, which we'll plug here in our little commercial at the end. But I think that's enough said.
Well, thanks for joining us. Thanks to my panelists. And I don't got anything else to say. Roll it.
All right. See you next time, everybody.
You can play a random sound for us, Dave.
Okay.
It's the gore.
Oh,
that's not random.
Okay.
You're gone.
All right. We'll see you next time.
Go.
Beam up some Star Trek content with Live Long and Podcast. Tune in to X-Rated, the X-Men animated review show. artistic interviews with graphic histories, a roundtable movie discussion with Hey, did you see this one? And movie reviews with Hold Up, a movie podcast. And while you're at it, spin a few records with Eamon on Track. Watch us duke it out on trivial debates. And let's chat about TV with the Super Mater Brothers. It's all here on the United Federation of Podcasts.